I want to know more about international psychology because I've never heard this term before.
Very passionate actually to learn about other cultures.
I'm very, very interested in knowing more about international psychology.
The purpose of this video is to give students an opportunity to learn more about what psychologists do in different parts of the world.
In this DVD, you're going to see profiles of psychologists from different parts of the world, recommendations for students who wish to get involved in global psychology, professors supervising students in cross-cultural research, students discussing their international projects, and you will also hear about how students can get their work funded.
You're also going to see the value of attending conferences both at the international and local level, where you can meet people from all walks of life, from all parts of the world. You can exchange opinions, perhaps think about a research project you would like to do together, publishing papers together, learning how psychology is applied in a variety of cultural settings, and so much more.
I've heard a lot about international psychology. What does an international psychologist do?
International psychology focuses on the worldwide enterprise of psychology in terms of communication and networking, scholarship, practice, and pedagogy. It seeks to broaden the scope of collaboration among psychologists and psychology students, advocate committed involvement in international psychology and policy-making organizations, support theorizing and research at the international level and across diverse countries and cultures, promote responsible psychological practice conducive to human welfare, develop broadly acceptable codes for professional conduct, and create psychology curricula that meet the needs of culturally, economically, and politically diverse but rapidly shrinking world community.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
150 psychologists from 21 countries gathered in Amman, Jordan for the second Middle East and North Africa Regional Conference of Psychology. These countries include Jordan, Yemen.
We also developed hotline services in which children can really call us.
Qatar, Kuwait.
If we don't publish in the Middle East, then there's no validity.
United Arab Emirates.
I'm going to ask you, why is it that we need to have an enemy?
Saudi Arabia, Algeria, Palestine.
For me, I notice now the role, especially in Palestine, where I'm living now, the role of the woman is changed totally.
Lebanon, Oman, Israel.
We use values to evaluate people. Is this a good person or a bad person? Someone I would like to be with or not like to be with?
Turkey.
Continents, Asian side and the European side, connected through this bridge.
Australia.
What I've found is that you can't deal with people unless you can understand something about them.
England, France, Italy, Greece.
Well, as might be predicted, in all countries you see the red, you feel closest to mother.
Germany, Denmark, Ireland.
From the day I've spent today with people from the Middle East has made me realize that, yes, the Irish situation, of course, is very relevant.
Singapore.
It's just fascinating to try and understand at a deep level how people think and feel in different countries, coming from different backgrounds.
Canada.
I think that the Universal Declaration of Ethical Principle for Psychologists can help people to know better what are the values, the moral principles we share.
South Africa and the United States.
Two monkeys, the same kind of experiences, but one of them had the decisional control
over the events in their environment, and the other one didn't. That monkey was called the executive monkey.
We now have about 1 million psychologists, of whom only about 27% are Americans. So it would be wonderful if the profession, but also students, learn about what's going on in psychology all around the world, why it's doing so well in quite disparate regions such as Brazil, Argentina, Japan, India, and so on, and what we can learn from psychologists in these regions.
Hi, I'm Dr. Raymond Hamden, and tonight you're in the psychologist chair. And believe it or not, Dubai is not an Arab city, even if it belongs in an Arabic country. It's so global that more than 120 nationalities are represented. In our clinic alone, of the 12 full-time people, we have 8 nationalities and 6 languages that are spoken. Clinical, forensic, educational, and organizational psychology are our main focus. 90% of the people with whom we work are normal people with adjustment problems, depression, anxiety, stress. There's also issues around things like sexual disorders, marital problems, family issues, children with learning disorders. There's many issues that you, as well as I, know from around the world, because people are people wherever we go.
I live in Singapore. I was born there. I studied in Australia and in the UK. That's my psychology training. Right now, I'm active on the International Union of Psychological Science. I'm on the executive committee, and I'm the treasurer of the International Association of Applied Psychology. Well, when the tsunami hit in December 2004, and there was great devastation, damage, a lot of people dead, hurt, injured. So in May 2005, the Singapore workshop was conducted with 3 to 4 nominated representatives from Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand. The workshop, I think, was a success in that we reached this far, but this is a beginning.
Clinical psychologist here at Teachers College Park University and founder of the annual Health Disparities Conference. This is Nana Karantama Ayaguafo. Together we have created a healing drum workshop that combines some of the theoretically based trauma resolution techniques that I'm familiar with and also some of the African healing wisdom that Nana has written about.
It's a very exciting, empowering collaboration, and I think it will really become the wave of the future, to be able to bring the arts and the academia together, all around spirit, all around identity, and all around our looking at our sameness instead of our differences.
Our students and also our colleagues find it more practical to work with people in terms of behavioral and cognitive theories. Also, I think that the humanistic theory of Rogers is very influential here in terms of having counseling relationships with others. Most of professors who are specializing in counseling, especially here in Jordan, were trained in the United States, and that's why you find the American influence very strong here.
She's been visiting regularly for the past 2 years at the invitation of the Chinese government, preaching her gospel.
This is what trust is all about.
The Chinese are slowly learning a new openness.
Women, take the blindfold off. Very good. Very good. Go down.
A growing number of Chinese want to hear what she has to say. Her audience is often doctors and other medical professionals.
Why do this for free? Well, you're not making any money out of it. You're
not making any money? Excuse me, I'm spending money. It's my payback to the world. Life's been good to me, and this is my way of giving back to the world, and particularly to China that I love so much.
Well, this is Kiki Bar. It's the bar where psychoanalysts come and drink croissants with coffee, and this area was called, and today we remember it as Bisha Freud. We used to play to make a joke about this. It said what Freud has in his head, and he has a woman. I think that we always have to consult and to read a lot about Freud. Every time you start reading Freud, you discover new things.
We conducted the cross-cultural studies on gratitude between Thailand and Japan, and we found that Japanese people feel more indebtedness on receiving favor, and the indebtedness is correlated more with helping behavior than Thai students.
I think it's interesting because we live in the same Asian area, but we feel different between how we say thank you or thankful. So I'm really interested in his studies.
What we need is to first of all identify what are some universal ideals or principles in applied psychology, and then these of course will be influenced by local culture, and there will be a rapprochement between the two.
We just met on the very first day here, that we are ready to do some collaborative researches. Even I had an idea of working on faith healing kind of thing, because we do have in Pakistan as well, and I think we have something in Africa as well, so that could also be done.
Faith healing,
Yeah.
It is a great idea for both of us to work together in coming up with a research study that will focus on faith healing and that will address the peculiarities of the two nations and also address the commonalities between the two nations, Pakistan and Nigeria. Yeah.
So when colleagues get together, even in an informal setting like having lunch, very exciting, magical things can happen. Cooperations, new ideas about books, about research studies, all in the sense of international cooperation and working together.
We can do something globally where each one of us can write a chapter about her own culture and how you see your role has changed in your culture or within your environment or within your society.
The role of the woman is changed. If you go to our mom, no one is working. But for us, now all the women are working, taking care of the children and coming back. It's like a machine. And I'm sorry to say it, also the man is not taking a good role with the woman. Rarely you will find a man washing the dishes or cleaning the house or taking care of the studying of his children.
But the important things for me now, as a Muslim woman and an Arab woman, to write a book or chapter about women, because really I want the Western to see that, as you said, we are ladies. Even if we cover our head, we didn't cover our mind.
And then we can have one value about the Middle East, another value about Africa.
Or the relations between African women and Middle Eastern women.
We will.
We will do that?
Yes.
We will?
We will.
Okay.
Do psychologists make enough of a contribution in the macro sector? For instance, in international relations, at the United Nations.
Most important thing that I do as a psychologist at the UN so far has been the survey that we conducted among the NGO reps.
surveying them about their working relationship with the UN.
We always welcome students, I know I do, to special events where we can get them badges for certain meetings. Sometimes they can work as interns, which are unpaid positions, but we welcome their help on a lot of things.
Since we're interning at the UN, let's try to pick out the flags, see which ones we can name.
I can name Israel, and next to it is Italy, then Brazil, then Japan.
Well, as a student, this has been a great experience. It's not something you can learn in a classroom, just sitting and listening to someone lecture. You have to really experience it yourself.
I think international psychology is something that's really important. It's new and upcoming, I feel like, because people are more interested now in learning about different cultures.
Things like AIDS, rights for women, climate change. There are so many common interests that we have to deal with,
I'm working with, or starting to work with children with facial and physical deformities, and it's amazing to see that children from different cultures and different nations cope with their anomalies in a very different way, and that also falls under international psychology.
And some of the events coming up that students can be involved in are, one is Psychology Day.
The purpose of this Psychology Day is to highlight the many important roles that psychology and psychologists play in supporting the goals and activities of the UN.
Much of the work that non-governmental organizations representatives, psychologists here at the United Nations engage in has to do with human behavior and human well-being.
Conflict has led to the forced displacement of more than 30 million persons, mostly women and children, many in dire need of psychological treatment.
However, using our collective strength, we can promote social cohesion, peaceful coexistence, and sustainable development in the world.
The main thing I tell my own students is pick topics that you are really interested in, that excite you, that are fun for you to do, because research can become very, very frustrating. Careers can become tough, and if you really want to know and learn what you're working on, then you'll get past that frustration.
First of all, you have to have some sort of a theory. You have to have some idea of what you're going to do. The second thing is the instrument that you use, the psychological instrument that you use. You have to make sure that you're measuring the same things in different countries. It's not only a good translation that's important, but you have to make sure that that the concepts are equivalent in the questionnaires. This is the biggest mistake not students make, but a lot of psychologists make.
So they have to get their research published in English, specifically for those PhD candidates. Those kind of stressful things, but I think my personal experience is very good for them. Get involved in international communication and cooperation.
Begin to look in a database, like a PsycInfo database, for people who have published in that country that you're interested in. They have published on the topic of prejudice or have published on the topic of domestic violence, and begin to correspond with those people and tell them, I read your article, this is what I'm thinking of, this is what I would be interested in. Are there any chance of collaborating on some kind of a research project or some kind of endeavor?
And so as students, it is our responsibility to not only be engaged in discussions in the classroom about multicultural international affairs, but it's also important for us to be involved in forming partnerships with other students from across the world, and also encouraging our faculty and other training councils to become involved.
I encourage all the Asian students to join the Asian Psychological Association, but not only the Asian students. It is open to every student, every psychologist, whether he or she is an Asian or not an Asian.
Contact their national, regional psychology student association as soon as possible to get into it, to apply for it, for membership, become member of those associations, and then through those associations become more active in this type of international associations. They would eventually get more information, more efficient information about how to get scholarship or a grant to go abroad. And I think that altogether this would lead them to a more prosperous career in the future.
The Office of International Affairs is very frequently contacted by students, and we are happy to be as much of a catalyst as we can to provide information. We're contacted by students within the United States who would like to understand how they can do an internship, do research, find international experiences. We're contacted by students from outside the United States who would like to understand how they can further their education or careers within the U.S.
So what we do is in the international division, which is Division 52, we have a membership that can help you. You will be exposed to so many psychologists, to so many opportunities that will help you in your internship. It'll make you clear about the different areas that you can become involved. It'll help you to become closer to psychologists, that they may open the doors later on for whatever opportunities you have. Andrew, would you be interested in becoming a member?
Actually, yeah, I would. It's something I'm really interested in.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Find a way somehow to attend an international meeting and to relate to the students there. And also, if you can't manage that, go to an APA convention.
My research is on the way bystanders relate with survivors and how much survivors blame the bystanders for the genocide in addition to the actual perpetrators. And this research found that they actually do blame the bystanders as well, and they have significant levels of unforgiveness towards what amounts to just the basic Rwanda. Wow. So much research is done just using college students in America, and it's really important to take these psychological ideas and make sure that they are relevant to other cultures and other areas, and there needs to be more people that are willing to go beyond just their one community to help other people as well.
Our original data is collected from England, United States, and China. We compare the general managers, which including over 1,000 managers from different industries. And we use 13 personality traits to investigate how these personality traits possibly related to the job performance and the job satisfaction. And we got the different results for different personality traits. Email address.
Okay, I think your research is very interesting.
Okay.
So you can write your email and I'm looking at how gay men of color, specifically African American, Latino, and Asian American gay men, overcome heterosexism and racism combined. We deal with racism here in this country, prejudice, discrimination, as it affects people of color, but also people who are LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. That's also true for other countries. So for those students that are interested in that, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of room for more research. We need to extend this research, so I encourage you to look into this topic and please contribute to the literature that's out there because it's sorely lacking.
The way of the future is for students to know about these internet-based technologies and to be able to use them to be able to connect with each other. And I'm pleased to know that some of my students are interested in the use of these technologies.
So the blog could help international psychology in a way that other psychologists from all over the world could probably give it their own perspectives about how to enhance this field. And maybe you could have other international psychologists incorporate their studies from their cultures on Wikipedia. You could also use webcasts and podcasts probably to have sort of discussion instead of having to go there. You could do a video discussion.
For international psychology, I wanted to create kind of my own take on it and set it to public so that way I can have people who are interested, they can just join up and it can be people from anywhere really, and that way we can talk to each other over the computer.
and I'm half Ecuadorian and half Greek. And this summer I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to work at a psychiatric hospital in Ecuador, specifically in Guayaquil, where my family is from, and have the opportunity to really establish connections with the field over there and see how the clinical field's different, and maybe establish connections for the future for research purposes or for clinical purposes and so forth.
This semester I started to work on my thesis, and it's about a psychological test. It's called the Personality Assessment Inventory for Leslie Morley. When we want to buy or get a test, especially psychological test, we must buy it, purchase it. We must contact the publisher, and it's so hard to contact him. So these are some kinds of problems that we face here in Jordan.
I studied abroad in Madrid, Spain for 5 weeks, and when I returned, my mentoring professor was doing research on study abroad in the South, and I was really interested, so I decided to take over the study and work with him on that.
I'm looking for something in dealing with substance abuse or criminal populations, and I was hoping to study abroad at some point in my doctoral career, or living abroad and practicing or researching psychology afterwards, either way. And apparently was offered an opportunity to present at the 29th International Congress of Psychology in Berlin. So I'm very seriously going to consider that and make sure that the gentleman who offered it remembers that he told me that.
And I'm interested in a lot of cultural psychology, international issues like cultural competency and stuff like that. So I'm going to hope to network with some people in the UK and Germany, you spoke to, and a couple other people so I can hopefully do my practicum abroad.
I'm a professor in health psychology in Berlin, Germany. And I've been very lucky to have lots of doctoral students from all over the world. And for example, I have one from South Korea, one from Costa Rica, one from Sudan and other places. And I'm very fortunate that these doctoral students not just finished the degree and went off, but they continue to do collaborative research with me. For example, with a woman in Sudan, I work on a cancer project. With a man in South Korea, I work on dietary behaviors in South Koreans. And with the one in Costa Rica, I work on metabolic syndrome and physical activity and other topics. So we collect data and analyze jointly and write up some publications. And this is a very rewarding experience.
Know where I can find those jobs, I guess, and what is out there.
For those students who have an interest in aging, I should mention that this is a field where it's going to be growing, the geropsychology. Not only are people living longer, but the birth rate is decreasing, especially in Western Europe. So there's a lot of need for people to work with older people. So it's a really a great job opportunity.
My experience in Thailand actually led to me applying for a Fulbright. And so in 1999, I taught psychotherapy to psychiatry residents for 6 months at Chiang Mai University, and that was a wonderful experience. Some time has passed now, and I've applied for another Fulbright. And I've recently been notified that I'll be teaching at Yonsei University in Seoul, Korea for 10 months. It's important for you to appreciate that there are also Fulbrights for young psychologists and even for graduate students. And you can learn about this by visiting the Fulbright webpage, and all you have to do is Google Fulbright and it will come up.
Developing countries are now starting ministries of science and technology. And those ministries and councils depend a lot on international exchange. So they are likely to be hired, and I know some students of mine who were hired by the Mexican Council for Science and Technology in order to help them with their international relations in behavioral sciences. So that's a real possibility.
In many parts of the world, particularly the developing world, psychology is a burgeoning industry. It is an area for more and more involvement, and the opportunities are tremendous. As I said, particularly in the area of work.
They should study specific topics like what is called today behavioral finance, how people behave at the stock market, how do people behave as consumers.
Go to your National Science Foundation or whoever in your country is responsible for international collaborations and just offer your request. I'm interested in becoming more internationally connected.
So I went to my honors program as this was my honors thesis, and I told them what I was doing. I wrote up a rationale, and they gave me money. They gave me $500, and the study abroad coordinator I was in touch with, and they actually, the dean of the honors school got in touch with the history department, global understanding, and another department, Phi Eta Sigma, a freshman honor society, and they all chipped in to fund my research.
So that funds you to
$1,000.
Some of my funding comes from my university. It's also, a lot of areas, it's very cheap to do research. I can use part of my stipend to do my research in Rwanda. It's cheaper to do research there than it is to do research here in the States, I found. So it's actually very easy to do it. Funding is not a huge restriction.
Made some meetings, talked to some people. I emailed the president, found out where the different grants were. There are a few different grants. There was an international student grant, there was a student aid society grant, there was the president's grant, there was a dean's grant, and lastly there's the psychology department grant, because most departments and most schools have money saved away for students who want to do research.
I've been thinking about becoming an international psychologist, and I've been learning more about it, but I just want to know what steps you recommend I should take into that career goal.
There are lots of professors around the world who are interested in international topics.
Look them up on the web, right? And then email them, find out more about them. Then a second step you can take is join one or two organizations that have to do with international psychology as a student member.
Probably the best book to get started with is a book by Michael Stevens and myself. It's called Tour de Global Psychology. And in that book, there's a chapter by Harold Tukushin and Leila Stembo. And the chapter discusses how to get involved in international psychology, global psychology. If you want to know how psychology is doing around the world, you can look at a book by Michael Stevens and Danny Wedding, Handbook of International Psychology.
A lot of students want to know if the field of international psychology is for them. It is a good fit if you like to learn about other cultures, work in other countries, and meet people from diverse backgrounds. If you're interested in cross-cultural research and like presenting at international conferences, if you're willing to go to some dangerous places, for example, helping people after disasters and trauma, if you're interested in global issues like AIDS, trafficking, poverty, and human rights, and finally, international psychology could be a good field for you if you like to travel, meeting up with old friends, making new friends, and having some fun.
We were at a public advocacy training workshop, and Dr. Judy and I found out that we were both interested in issues of international relations. So next thing I know, I'm on a plane to Argentina, and then next thing I know, I'm on the end of the most inhabitable place on earth. Ready.
Oh, it's a dream come true.
His name is Zuzu.
Zuzu!
Yeah, and I are in perfect harmony.
Oh.
We just have to move together. I am so happy I resigned to get here, to be here in this conference.
The conference program is an exciting opportunity for us to meet together, to work together, and to learn from one another. Let us grow together. Let us grow closer. Let us grow to be better psychologists. Thank you.